Show a 6-month-old baby two pictures. One is a flower, one is a snake. The baby can't walk. The baby can't talk. The baby has never seen a snake in its life, never been bitten, never been hissed at, never watched a nature documentary, never heard a single scary story about anything. This baby's entire life experience is milk, sleep, and the occasional confusing encounter with its own feet. And yet, when researchers show that baby the snake, something measurable happens. The pupils dilate. The body releases a small stress response. The infant brain, barely old enough to recognize its own mother's face, locks onto that coiled shape and quietly sounds an alarm it was never taught to sound. Now think about how strange that is. You are afraid of something you have never been hurt by. Most people who are terrified of snakes have never been within 10 feet of one. Most people who freeze at the sight of a spider have never been bitten by anything more dangerous than a mosquito. You can be a grown adult, living in a city, surrounded by concrete, having gone your entire life without a single genuine encounter with a venomous animal, and still feel your stomach drop when you see a thin, dark shape move the wrong way in the grass. Why? Why this specific fear? Why so early? Why so universal? Why does a thing you've never met already live inside your nervous system, waiting? Because this isn't really a fear you learned, it's a fear you inherited, and the story of how it got there runs back tens of millions of years, long before you, long before humans, long before anything you'd recognize as a face. This goes deep. Let's go. Start with the thing that sounds insane but is backed by a pile of evidence. You may have been born with this fear already installed. Not the full-blown phobia, not the screaming standing on a chair version, but the raw circuitry, the detection system, the part of the brain that goes that, pay attention to that, was very likely there before you took your first breath. In 2017, researchers at the Max Planck Institute and Uppsala University ran exactly the experiment I described. They showed 6-month-old infants images of snakes and spiders, and then images of flowers and fish of the same size, color, and brightness. The baby's pupils consistently dilated more for the snakes and the spiders. Pupil dilation is controlled by the noradrenergic system in the brain, a stress-linked network you have zero conscious control over. These infants weren't deciding to be afraid. They couldn't decide anything. Their brains were reacting before any thought was possible. 6 months old. That's the part that should stop you. A 6-month-old has not had time to learn that snakes are dangerous. It has not been bitten. It has not been warned. It has barely figured out that objects continue to exist when they leave the room. And yet the alarm is already wired in, already running, already faster than the conscious mind that hasn't even fully formed yet. This points to something biologists have argued for decades. The fear of snakes and spiders isn't downloaded from your culture. It's closer to factory installed. But to understand why your body would bother installing it, you have to understand who your ancestors were. And more importantly, you have to understand who was hunting them. Here's a fact that reorganizes the whole picture. For most of the history of mammals, snakes were not a side character. They were the main predator. Go back around 100 million years, to the world of the small, shrew-like creatures that would eventually become primates, that would eventually become us. These animals were tiny. They lived in trees and undergrowth, and the thing most likely to kill them, day in and day out, was not a big cat, not a bird of prey, not anything with legs. It was the snake. Constricting snakes appeared in the fossil record long before the predators we usually picture. For tens of millions of years, before lions, before wolves, before eagles became a serious threat, snakes were the original nightmare. They were the first predator that our lineage ever had to survive on a mass scale. And then, much later, venom evolved, and the snakes got a second, even more terrifying upgrade. So sit with the timescale here. Your ancestors and snakes have been locked in a life-or-death relationship for somewhere around 60 to 100 million years. That is not a fling. That is the longest predator-prey relationship in your entire evolutionary history. Cats have been hunting our line for a few million years. Snakes have been doing it for tens of millions. By the time anything resembling a human walked the earth, the snake had already been the boogeyman for an unimaginable stretch of deep time. And evolution does not forget a predator that ancient. It writes it into the body. And then the relationship got worse. Because at some point, the snake stopped just squeezing, and started poisoning. Venom changed the entire equation. A constrictor you can sometimes fight off, sometimes wrestle away from, sometimes survive. A venomous bite gives you no such mercy. A single strike, a fraction of a second of contact, and the outcome is already decided while you're still standing there, wondering what just touched your ankle. This kicked off what biologists call an evolutionary arms race. The snakes got better venom. The primates that survived got better at spotting snakes before the strike ever happened. Round after round, for millions of years, each side pushing the other. And the primates couldn't fight back with claws or speed or armor. Their only weapon was detection. See it first, or don't see another sunrise. So the pressure didn't go into muscle. It went into the eyes and the brain, into noticing, into a nervous system that treated the sight of a snake as the single most urgent piece of information it could possibly receive. This is the foundation of something called the snake detection theory, proposed by an anthropologist named Lynne Isbell in 2006. And her central claim is so bold it sounds like science fiction. Isbell argues that snakes didn't just give primates a fear, they may have given primates their eyes. Stay with me, because this is where it gets genuinely strange. Think about what makes primate vision special. We have forward-facing eyes. We have sharp central vision. Many primates, including us, have excellent color discrimination, particularly good at picking certain shapes and patterns out of a cluttered background. For a long time, scientists assumed this visual system evolved mainly to grab fruit, to judge distances between branches, to move through trees. Isbell's argument flips part of that. She points out that the primates with the best vision tend to be the ones that evolved alongside the most venomous snakes, and the primates with weaker vision, like those in Madagascar, evolved in places where deadly snakes were rare or absent. Her conclusion is staggering. The pressure to spot a camouflaged, motionless, perfectly hidden snake before you step on it may have been one of the forces that sharpened the primate eye and the primate brain into the high-resolution threat detection machine you are using to read these words right now. Read that again. The animal you are most irrationally afraid of may be one of the reasons you can see clearly at all. The snake didn't just leave a scar on your psychology, it may have helped carve out your biology. And the wiring backs this up in a way that is almost eerie. In 2013, a team of neuroscientists led by Quan Van Lay and Hisao Nishijo studied a region of the brain called the pulvinar in macaque monkeys. The pulvinar is an ancient piece of the visual system, deep and old, part of a fast subcortical route for processing what you see. These were monkeys raised in a lab, monkeys that had never encountered a snake in their lives. The researchers showed them images of snakes, monkey faces, monkey hands, and simple geometric shapes, and specific neurons in the pulvinar fired faster and stronger in response to the snakes than to anything else. Not because the monkey had learned snakes were dangerous. It had never met one. The cells were simply tuned that way from the start. There are, in the primate brain, neurons that appear to be specialized for one job above all others. Find the snake. Find it fast. Find it before the slow, thoughtful, conscious part of your brain even gets the memo. Which brings us to the speed of this thing, because the speed is the part that makes it feel supernatural. You don't decide to be afraid of a snake. You're afraid of it before you decide anything. This is because of two separate roads your brain uses to process a threat. There's the high road, the slow, careful path, where visual information travels up to the cortex, gets analyzed, gets identified, and you consciously think, that is a snake. And then there's the low road, mapped out by the neuroscientist Joseph LeDoux, a fast and dirty shortcut that runs from your eyes through the thalamus, straight to the amygdala, the brain's threat alarm, skipping conscious thought entirely. The low road is sloppy. It doesn't care about details. It works on rough shapes. Long, thin, curved, no legs, sudden movement. And the moment it detects that pattern, it pulls the trigger. Your heart rate spikes. Your muscles tense. You jump back from the garden hose, the stick, the crack in the pavement, a full half-second before the smart part of your brain catches up and says, relax, it's a rope. That embarrassing little jump? That's the low road doing exactly what it was built to do. It would rather make you flinch at 1,000 ropes than let you ignore one snake, because in the world it was built for, flinching at a rope costs you nothing. and ignoring a snake costs you everything. This is what psychologists Arna Oman and Susan Mineka called the fear module, a dedicated, fast, automatic system in the brain that is preferentially tuned to certain ancient threats. And here is the experiment that proves it isn't just about learning. Susan Mineka and Michael Cook worked with lab-raised rhesus monkeys, monkeys that had never seen a snake and showed no fear of them. Then they let those monkeys watch videos of other monkeys reacting with terror to a snake. Almost immediately, the lab monkeys acquired the fear. One exposure to another monkey's panic, and the fear was installed for good. Now here's the twist that changes everything. The researchers edited the videos. They spliced the footage so the wild monkey appeared to be reacting in terror to a flower instead of a snake. Same fearful monkey, same screaming, same everything. But the object of fear was a flower, and the lab monkeys did not learn to fear the flower. They couldn't. The brain refused. It was perfectly willing to learn fear of a snake from a single second-hand glance, and completely unwilling to learn the exact same fear of a flower, no matter what it saw. That is the smoking gun. The brain is not a blank slate that learns to fear whatever it's told. It comes preloaded with a list of things it is prepared to fear, and snakes are at the top of that list, and flowers are simply not on it. You are born ready to fear the snake. You just need the smallest nudge to flip the switch. And sometimes, as those infant studies suggest, you don't even need the nudge. And the list is weirdly specific. In a follow-up, Cook and Mineka pushed the experiment further. They showed the monkeys edited footage of another monkey reacting in fear, but this time the object was a toy snake, a toy crocodile, a toy rabbit, a bunch of flowers, and the monkeys readily learned to fear the toy snake and the toy crocodile, the ancient predators, the old enemies, even in plastic form. But the toy rabbit and the flowers? Nothing. The fear wouldn't stick. The brain has a guest list, and reptilian killers from deep time get in instantly, while bunnies and bouquets get turned away at the door. This isn't general fearfulness. It's a targeting system, and the targets were chosen tens of millions of years ago. You can see the fingerprints of that targeting system in your own species, too. Fear of snakes is, by a wide margin, one of the most common phobias on the planet. Surveys routinely find that a huge share of adults report being frightened of snakes, with a meaningful slice meeting the bar for a genuine phobia. And snakes and spiders together top almost every list of specific phobias ever compiled. Not heights, not fire, not the dark. The two creepy crawlies that haunted our ancestors. And here's the tell. The people most afraid of snakes are overwhelmingly people who have never been harmed by one. The fear doesn't come from experience. It comes from inheritance. You don't have to be bitten to be terrified. The terror was already there, waiting, before you ever had a chance to earn it. There's a clever experiment that shows this running in humans, and you've basically performed it yourself 100 times without realizing. Psychologists Vanessa LeDoux and Judy DeLoach set up a simple test. They showed people, including young children, a grid of photographs and asked them to find the one snake hidden among a bunch of flowers, or the one flower hidden among a bunch of snakes, or a snake hidden among frogs or caterpillars. People found the snakes faster, consistently, reliably, faster than they found the harmless things. 3-year-olds did it, adults did it. The snake seems to pop out of the visual field, to grab the eye, to announce itself, in a way that a flower or a frog simply does not. Your visual system is not neutral. It is actively biased toward catching that one specific shape, faster than almost anything else you look at. It is a search engine with a permanent saved search, and the search is always "there's a snake, find it." Now, let's be honest, because this video would be cheating if it wasn't. The snake case is rock solid. The spider case is messier, and a good explanation has to deal with that. Because here's the problem. Snakes have been killing primates for 100 million years. Spiders, for the most part, have not. The overwhelming majority of spiders are completely harmless to humans. Only a tiny handful of species worldwide can do real damage, and deadly spider bites are extraordinarily rare. So why the universal dread of the 8-legged ones? Why do so many people who shrug at a wasp lose their minds over a daddy longlegs that couldn't hurt a fly? There are a few honest answers, and they probably work together. One possibility is that spider fear piggybacks on the snake detection system. The brain's threat alarm is tuned to a rough template, not a precise photograph. Things that are small, dark, fast, scuttling, unpredictable, with too many limbs and a body that moves wrong, may trip the same ancient wire. The system is built to be over-inclusive. It would rather flag a harmless spider than miss a dangerous one. A second possibility is that some spiders, in the deep past and in certain regions, genuinely were dangerous enough to matter, and the cost of fearing all of them was lower than the cost of misjudging one. And a third layer is cultural. In medieval Europe, spiders got tangled up with disease and dread, and that fear got passed down through stories in a way it never did in some other parts of the world, where spiders are tolerated or even eaten without a second thought. So the spider fear is likely a genuine, but partly second-hand fear, a real instinct leaning on the snake system, amplified by culture, generalized to a creature that mostly didn't earn it. Which is its own kind of fascinating because it means you can inherit a fear that points at the wrong target and still feel every bit as real. And that points to the strangest, most uncomfortable truth in all of this. Your fears are out of date. They are calibrated for a world that no longer exists. Think about what actually threatens your life today. Cars, electrical outlets, stairs, sugar, fast food, a phone in your hand while you cross the street. These things injure and kill staggering numbers of people every single year. And yet you feel almost nothing when you look at them. Your heart does not race at the sight of a wall socket. Your pupils do not dilate at a cheeseburger. No baby has ever flinched at a photo of a car. Because evolution is slow, painfully slow, and it has had no time at all to write these modern dangers into your nervous system. It is still running software optimized for the savanna and the forest floor. Snakes still kill somewhere between 80,000 and 140,000 people a year, mostly in parts of the world where humans and venomous snakes still share space, so the fear is not entirely obsolete. But for most people reading this, the most dangerous thing in your day is the commute, not the cobra. Your brain just hasn't gotten the update. It is guarding a door that the threats stopped using thousands of years ago, while the new threats walk right past it, unwatched, unfeared, completely ignored. There's one last layer here, and I saved it for the end because it's the part that genuinely rearranges how you see yourself. We've been treating this fear like a bug, a glitch, an embarrassing overreaction to a garden hose. But it isn't a bug. It is one of the oldest and most successful pieces of inherited memory you carry. Think about what it actually represents. Every single one of your direct ancestors, going back through humans, through earlier primates, through the small creatures in the trees, every last one of them survived long enough to reproduce. Not one link in that chain, stretching back tens of millions of years, was killed by a snake before passing on its genes. The ones that didn't notice the snake, the ones whose brains didn't flinch, the ones who stepped on the coiled shape in the grass, they were removed from the story. They are not your ancestors. They couldn't be. The only beings who could become your ancestors were the ones who saw the snake in time, and the way they saw it in time was this fear, this exact reflex, this pupil-dilating, heart-racing, jump back before you think alarm that you inherited fully formed and have been carrying your whole life without ever being asked. So that fear you feel, that irrational, oversized, embarrassing fear of a creature that has probably never threatened you, is not a weakness. It is a message. It is tens of millions of years of survival, compressed into a half-second flinch. It is the accumulated terror of 1,000 generations who lived because they were afraid, handed down to you intact, still firing, still working, still trying to keep you alive, in a world it no longer quite understands. The snake shaped your ancestors. It may have shaped your eyes, and it absolutely shaped the alarm system humming quietly underneath everything you think and feel. So the next time you see a dark, thin shape move the wrong way, and you jump before you can think, don't be embarrassed. That flinch is older than your species. It was watching the grass long before you were born, and somewhere, a 6-month-old who has never seen a snake just felt its pupils widen, for the very same reason you did. It already knows. It always did.